Okay, guys, welcome back to this tactical intellectual channel. I appreciate you guys for being here. Before I start, I want to give a disclaimer that since the topic of discussion is surrounding Africa and Africans, I just want to let you guys know this is not meant to foment hatred against Africans. It's not meant to be divisive. It's not meant to disparage Africans. So, what am I talking about that I need to hit you guys with a disclaimer right off the bat? Well, it's the character traits, the mentalities, the ethics, the code of conduct. We know that there's a difference, and it's really drastic what goes on this side of the world compared to how things are done on the continent of Africa. Okay, so all of this is a teaching moment because you can't claim that we hate y'all and we really don't know you guys. This is all about knowing one another. And when two different groups meet, it's always initial friction. But I say this because more and more continental Africans are coming over here, and we can't just throw people together and expect everything to be quote unquote hunky dory. That's an old timey phrase over here, but we can't expect everything to be peaches and cream. We don't know each other like that. So I want to give the game to my people, and we can kind of adjust to you guys. No, I misspoke. You guys can adjust to us because there's attitudes and mentalities that Africans, continental Africans, need to drop if they want to deal with us. Y'all can deal with one another like that, but dealing with us, we don't move like that. Nobody moves like that. So let me go ahead and introduce what I want to speak on. And it's going to be kind of in a quasi-reaction form or style. And the link to this video will be in the description. But the title of the video is How Cake Exposed a Nation. Let's discuss the Lagos Cake Picnic. And the content creator is Beverly Adaeze. And like I say, the link to this video will be in my description. There's a lot of key points that we as FBA need to take note of and remember, because when we see some weird stuff that's happening in our interactions with continental Africans, we can actually locate it and we can better deal with it. You know what I mean? So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the reaction right here. So before I play that, I want to let people know that this is nothing more than a teaching moment. This is not a campaign to overly scrutinize and disrespect and denigrate Nigerians, West Africans, and Africans in general. But let's acknowledge Africa has a different behavior, different mentality, different way of life. And a lot of Africans, 9 times out of 10, bring that over here, and it leads to static. It leads to just problems in general. Me as a FBA man, I want to shine light on this behavior so that us FBA, we can better deal with potential problems, and the Africans, the ones that are right-hearted, can see how they act and just adjust, because hey, when in Rome. So let's go ahead and roll this video out. All right, so what you just witnessed, that's a cake festival. I've never been, but the woman in pink, this is her video, so she's gonna do the explaining. And just a little background on her: she was born in the US, but her heritage is Nigerian. She's a first generation Nigerian born in the United States. So let's go ahead.
You people not eat at home. Why do you behave this way? So I want you all to picture this. Picture you and your friends decided you wanted to do something fun for the weekend. So you get dressed up, you head to this beautiful event, you bring a cake because the whole theme of the event is sweet treats and cake and everything. So you took your time to bake a cake. Let's say you're into cakes. So this is a great opportunity for you to showcase your skill. So you and your friend, you get to the event, you notice that, okay, wow, there are a lot of people here. You place your cake on the table, and the organizers now say, all right, it is time for everyone to get a cake. Now, mind you, you're looking around like, there's a lot of people though, but okay. They say, ready, set, go. And before you know it, this cake that you took your time to bake, before you know it, you're just seeing hands grabbing and just hands that you don't even know whether they wash or they didn't wash. No glove. They're grabbing your cake. And so at the end of it all, this cake that you took time to make, you didn't even get to taste it. You didn't even get to taste it. It was just, the cake is just a memory at this point. That is exactly what happened at the Lagos picnic, or at least that's what I saw. What is going on, my people? Welcome back to my channel. If you have not clicked the subscribe button or the like button, please help me to do that before we go on to this video. Okay, what are you waiting for? It helps YouTube to push out this video to the algorithm, because today we're discussing how something as simple as cake exposed the whole nation. There is this event kind of going around in different parts of the world, different parts of different countries, and it's called like a cake picnic. Now, different people have their names for it, but essentially the idea is that people are coming together and they are baking cakes. You are supposed to like put your own little spin and showcase your skill and different flavors and things like that.
Okay, so this is how a cake picnic supposed to function. Okay, remember that.
And at the end of it all, after we're all done admiring these beautiful cakes, everyone is supposed to take like a slice so they can experience different flavors. That is what it's supposed to be. It's actually a great idea, very, very cute, until the thing reached Lagos. It was cute in other places until it reached Lagos. When I tell you, the first video I saw, I was embarrassed. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was just appalled. Mind you, these are grown people. And I really wanted to talk about this because I feel like this goes far beyond just cake and sweet treats. I really believe the way that a lot of people acted in Lagos at that cake picnic exposed so much about what is really going on in the country. And all
Alright, so that's the gist of this whole entire video right here. It's not just a cake festival. That was a microcosm of the nation in general. And you know what? I'm glad I sat on this video because recently we had Anthony Joshua went to Nigeria to celebrate. And I mean, I think he said he's done with Nigeria because he got into a car wreck. There was no EMT. He watched his two best friends die, and he had to get in a cop car and get medical service elsewhere. It was just chaotic, and that's emblematic of a bigger issue. I'm gonna let her explain the rest because I'm not Nigerian. I'm a FBA spectator, but this is something that we need to know about. We got to have intel on these behaviors coming into the United States. Let's go ahead and proceed.
cake picnic exposed so much about what is really going on in the country and also the minds of some people in Lagos. Now, I want to preface this by saying I'm a proud Nigerian girl. I was born in Lagos. I moved to the States when I was 7 years old. I'm not like one of these.
Yeah, I stand corrected. She was born in Nigeria, moved to the States when she was young. Okay, my bad.
Diasporans that don't even connect with their family, that have the opportunity to and they simply don't.
Let's
I
rewind
can
it.
love my culture and also
Yeah, let's rewind it.
connect with their family, that have the opportunity to and they simply don't. I'm not like one of these diasporans that don't even connect with their family, that have the opportunity to and they simply don't. I can love my culture and also say when something is wrong.
This is what happens when over 1,300 people come together to have the largest cake potluck ever. This is the cake picnic in San Francisco's Legion of Honor, where everyone who attends is required to bring a whole cake. Think Cake Coachella or Cake Hunger Games. For the picnic, I made an orange olive oil cake
All right, let's
with a
skip some of
homemade
this
orange
one.
marmalade.
Alright. That's how it's supposed to be.
I went to check on my cake leftovers and there was literally nothing left except crumbs. Special thanks to Elisa for organizing such a sweet event.
Yo,
The first ever cake picnic in Lagos, and it was a mess. When I heard it was happening, I was really excited. I even baked a 12-inch lemon strawberry cake. When I got to the event center, I saw that they were still selling tickets to people who did not bring any cake. That was the first mistake they made. I got in and saw so many beautiful cakes. I couldn't wait to try them all. Before the event started, because it started quite late, I wanted to get some content with the people there. While I was filming, people suddenly started rushing at those cakes, grabbing them with their hands, chaos everywhere. I immediately ran to get my cake box. When I came back, everything was gone. The tables were empty. I could not believe my eyes. I did not get to taste my cake or any cake, in fact. Look at my empty cake box. I spent so much time, money, and resources on this cake picnic. It was so disappointing.
Nice.
Never again.
So now we've seen what the cake picnic was supposed to look like. Then we see what the one in Lagos looked like. First of all, let's talk about what this cake picnic exposed. I'm not gonna blame it 100% on the organizers, but I feel like they had a very big role in what happened. I really feel like this was a cash grab for them. And that's just my personal opinion, and I'm gonna stand on that. They saw this event and they were like, okay, let's bring it to Lagos. And maybe the intent in the beginning was like a fun event, but the fact that you're selling tickets to people who aren't even bringing cakes. You see the amount of people that were at the Lagos cake picnic versus the amount of cakes. And then when you watch the other videos, you see that, I mean, my goodness, there were just as many people as there were cakes, because in order to go to this cake picnic, you had to bring a cake, right? But
so basically, cash rules everything around them. Forget about organization and structure and doing things the correct way. Just, hey, if you don't have a cake, hey, just pay me and you can get in.
I feel like the greed sometimes in Nigeria needs to be studied. Now, granted, it's not just Nigeria. There are greedy people everywhere. I feel like someone who knows the nature of the average Nigerian in Nigeria, you should know that something like this was not going to go well.
And to be honest with you, I'm doing this because the average FBA, we don't know the mentality or the nature of Nigerians. We don't know the nature of West Africans and Africans in general. And that whole delineation thing, that's us gathering intel and acting accordingly to protect ourselves, because just this whole flat blackness and accepting everybody because they're melanated, in a perfect world, we would love for that to happen. But we get screwed in the end, and we have been getting screwed in the end. You see this whole Somalian situation. Hey, politicians, they're up here funding Somalians. They're funding Somalia. So, I mean, that money should be going to us. It should be staying within the borders of the United States towards the people who have been here the longest. You get the gist? You get what I'm saying? But let me rewind it a little bit so she can make her full point about the Nigerian greed.
I feel like someone who knows the nature of the average Nigerian in Nigeria, you should know that something like this was not going to go well. But at the end of the day, you got your money, Abi. There's no way you can convince me that you thought this event was gonna go smoothly. First of all, I'm sorry, but knowing Nigerians is one of those things. In fact, somebody should have been there to even pre-slice the cake. If you see at these other events, even when they say, all right, everybody go, and people are kind of like running, kind of lightly jogging to the cake, there is still decency. Even with the rush, people are cutting a decent slice. If you were gonna give people boxes, knowing that you sold more tickets than there were cakes, the wise thing would have been, when the MC is like entertaining the crowd or whatever, you have one of your organizers or one of the volunteers go and literally cut reasonable slices. Even though, yes, granted, some people will take more than, at least when you tell them, okay, one slice, take one slim slice per cake, at least someone else can be like, it's only one slice now. But when you leave people with whole cakes, with people who have the mindset that I need to take as much as possible, why won't they become animalistic? Okay, so the organizers are definitely responsible. The next thing.
Okay, now she said it. I didn't say it, so I don't want no, hey, you FBAs hate us. I don't want none of that. I don't really care about that. She said it. And this is this is a teaching moment from an FBA perspective. We gathering intel on how to best rub shoulders with these folks, because more and more West Africans are coming over here. So basically what she's saying is, don't just leave Nigerians, West Africans, Africans to their own devices, because You give them an inch, they're gonna take 50 miles. So there has to be strict parameters. And she's gonna make another point that further strengthens that point when it comes to parameters and structure, when it comes to people in general, but West Africans.
The next thing that this revealed to me was just the anyhowness that is acceptable in our culture. Dealing with some Nigerian businesses, there's an anyhowness that is like plaguing the land. I'm telling you, there is a lack of organization. Again, going back to the organizers, as you can see, one of the videos, it started late. Okay, and that's another thing too that I feel like we feel like it's a part of our culture. You see somebody come into someone's wedding 5 hours late. That stuff irks me. But then it's like, well, even if you're a timely person, you don't want to show up, and in fact, they're even asking you to, blow balloons and set up tables. So you show up late. And so it just breeds this cycle. It's like, are we ever going to break free from this? There's a lack of organization, and there's also an anyhowness. And I feel like we also do the bare minimum just to get by, right? So I want you to notice that in all these other videos, the cakes seem to be a reasonable size. I saw a cake.
And let me stop it there. Now, this is something that I have witnessed myself at work. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is not to be derogatory or to denigrate Africans, but I've never had an African outwork me ever. I'm just being for real. I've seen Africans do the bare minimum and then put more of the load, or let other people bear a heavier load while they go back and chill. I've seen that multiple times. Now, it's definitely not all Africans. There's some Africans that I know personally who are very good workers, man. They pull their weight, but it's a lot of them that don't, man. And that's what she's alluding to. And like I say, this is not to denigrate and disparage these guys. She said that that's part of Nigerian culture, and you have to have some parameters set in place when it comes to organization, because things are just spiral out of control. And that cake picnic epitomizes that whole notion. Now, let's let her cook some more.
And I feel like we also do the bare minimum just to get by, right? So I want you to notice that in all these other videos, the cakes seem to be a reasonable size. I saw a cake at the Lagos picnic that was literally like this size. I saw one that was a big pan. Don't get me wrong, it was a big pan of cake, no frosting, no decoration, no thought into the cake. You see how the other people, she put her oranges on there, she put the little rosemary and she uses as an opportunity to showcase her skill. But when it comes to us, we just want to do the bare minimum to get by. I'm looking at the cake inside the foil pan. I think there were 2 cakes inside the foil pan. One even looks like somebody was picking it as they were driving to the cake picnic. What made you think it was okay? And the organizers, what made you think it was okay to accept this? Why didn't you state that, first of all, you need a cake to get in? And you have to know that with Nigerians, you have to give them stipulations. Otherwise, you're gonna do whatever they want. Bare minimum, okay? And say you have to bring a 12-inch cake. That's what I would have done. You have to set those boundaries. The cake has to be 12 inches, and you can either buy it or you can bring it, but it has to be this dimension. Otherwise, you'll have people trying to get the most. Like, they're coming there for cake, but they just want to give the smallest they can give so they can go and collect somebody's cake. Also, there's like this disregard when it comes to order, and there's also an inability to, like, for us to queue up and stand in a line. Why is it that I'm watching videos of Davido and Chima's wedding, a wedding that was 3.
All right, so keep that in mind, FBA. Lack of structure, a disregard, and a disdain for actually setting parameters. You're dealing with a lot here, but let's go ahead and move forward.
$7 million. And then when it comes to the line for amala. And I know, listen, people love their amala. Yoruba people, they love their amala. I think I've tried amala like twice. And I like it, but it's not worth it for me to be behaving like I've never eaten before. Why am I looking at people in their nice suits with their bowls hanging out as if it's feed the children? And you're disturbing the amala lady. There's so much stress, there's so much chaos. And then when people say that people in Africa are starving, then you'll be offended. But look how you're behaving. For cake, for amala. As if
All right, now we seen this crazy bugged out mentality, man. Like Africans, they want you to put them on a pedestal, but then again, they got a lot of dysfunction and lack of regard for rules and structure and order. And when you point these things out, then it's, hey, you hate us, you know. You're scared to be African and craziness, man. They're bugged out, bro. But let's go ahead and move forward.
I've never eaten amala before. As a matter of fact, you're gonna go to a wedding next week and it's gonna be the same food that you're eating. It just goes to show that even when we get out of poverty, we get our big boy.
You're xenophobic.
It just goes to show that even when we get out of poverty, we get our big boy, big girl jobs, we still have that mindset. And the thing is, because nobody wants to miss out, and you guys aren't queuing, and I'm like, shoot, I don't want to be the only one that's not getting amala. Me too, I now jump in the behavior. And I'm now holding my plates at $3.7 million event of Davido and Choma, and I'm begging for amala. Can you imagine? And it's like, I'm sorry, like I'll just, like, do people not eat at home? Why do you behave this way? Why? Maka, why? You'll even see it at airports. When you go to an airport, you just see the rush. What are we rushing for? It's almost like we feel like, oh my God, we're gonna miss this thing. We don't know how to stand in one line, single filed line, patiently. What is the rush? Is it that we're plagued with the fear of missing out? What are we missing out on, please? You can't wait in the line for the shuttle bus as if there's only one shuttle bus coming, and if you don't get on that shuttle bus, you're gonna miss the flight. And sometimes I blame some of these airline companies because they're so inconsistent and they're so unreliable that people are like, I can't miss this flight. But I just remember, like, wow, you're in this cattle call, and people, grown women, grown men, they're rushing to get through this door to get on this shuttle bus. And it has just become behavior that we have just accepted, and that's like how we are. And I'm like, God, I wish this thing could really change. Even when there's traffic light, you see people don't even regard it. The traffic light is there to decorate.
Hey, but if us FBA point that out, then we're xenophobic. We hate Africans. Come on, man.
Lagos. Now, I actually have never been to Abuja, but I hear that Abuja is more organized, right? When I went back in December, you'll see that there'll be like a whole bunch of traffic. And instead of you to just, okay, yes, it's not ideal, just stay in the line.
All right, so let's be fair, man. Lagos was a ish show, but they said the one in Abuja was functioning properly. So, I mean, I'm going to be fair here. I'm going to be consistent. Give credit where credit is due. Lagos was was crazy. Madness.
Eventually, the traffic will go away. You will see people, they'll veer off on a place that they're not even supposed to drive on. Create their own path because they don't want to wait in line. And then...
Hey, that sounded like that truck that Anthony Joshua's driver ran into. You know, they were just parked in the middle of the road of a busy highway for a minute, for like a week. So let's go ahead and go forward.
If somebody says something, who are you to talk to me? Don't you know that I am this chief and this is, shut up your mouth, you bastard, you just hurling insults. Some of them will even go...
All right, let me key in on that part right there. When you say something or step to a Nigerian, they wanna bring that static. You're gonna have issues and problems. Now, to that point about the African hair braider shop in Birmingham, I want to say that African chick it was 3 women, and she was calling a man and another female against this one FBA sister who was mad off code. By the way, they bring that mentality here. You know, they want that static when you actually have the audacity to check them in regards to following the rules. They don't want to do that, man. And, you know, she said it. That's something that we peep too.
Get through this door to get on this shuttle bus. And it has just become behavior that we have just accepted. And that's like how we are. And I'm like, God, I wish this thing could really change. Even when there's traffic light, you see people don't even regard it. The traffic light is there to when I went back in December, you'll see that there'll be like a whole bunch of traffic. And instead of you to just, okay, yes, it's not ideal, just stay in the line, eventually the traffic will go away. You will see people, they'll veer off on a place that they're not even supposed to drive on. Create their own path because they don't want to wait in line. And then if somebody says something, who are you to talk to me? Don't you know that I am this chief and this is, shut up your mouth, you bastard, you just hurling insults. Some of them will even go as far as, okay, there's traffic going this way. They're going to take their car, turn it the opposite way. Even if it's a one way, they will drive you are coming this way, they're coming this, they don't care. They don't care because they don't want to stay in the line. What is really going on? Funny story, when I think this was like, I was like 24, I went back to Nigeria. We were driving to the village and our bus driver, I feel like he was a hot-tempered man, okay? We were in traffic, he was driving for this company called God is Good. The road conductors, but they take it upon themselves for whatever reason. I don't know, to be a conductor. Because this bus driver got out, hot, or I don't want to say people pleasers, but there's this thing of they don't want to be shamed. So they kind of follow, that's just kind of how their culture is. They don't want to be shamed. So certain things won't really fly. They, they're not that loud. Not us. Yeah, in fact, they are the king and queens of shamelessness. Honestly, a lot of y'all in Nigeria, you're actually very lucky that I'm not into politics because the laws I would put in place, and it's one of those things where some people, they may not like it, right? When you put laws and you put consequences in place, but it's needed. And eventually it'll make for a better society. Another thing that this cake picnic exposed is the scarcity mindset.
All right. That's another key point that she made. There has to be laws, but if you don't follow them, there needs to be consequences for breaking said order and structure. Basically the laws. So let's go ahead and move forward.
And the poverty mindset. I don't know the trauma that has caused us to have, or the average Nigerian, let me say, to have that scarcity mindset. Is it the colonialism, colonizers?
Yes.
Is it the government? Is it upbringing?
Yes.
I don't know what causes us to have that scarcity mindset that
all three.
Oh, more will not come, so let me take and take now. And you'll see it even at weddings. People will take boxes and not even considering, okay, let me just take 2 to-go plate. They'll pack. They'll send their children to come and get plate upon plate rice that, the rice will even eventually spoil.
Now, that leads to that scam mentality right there that we've been privy to. You guys have brought us into your world. Something that we gotta check. With consequences too.
So not really considering, that, hey, other people have to eat as well. So just take a reasonable portion. Yes, there's a lot of food, but why is it that you have to take 8 and send your kid to now come and take so much? And you're fighting with the food lady. Why? And I really feel like this was probably what was triggered in the minds of the people at the Lagos Cake Picnic. Because maybe some people had the mind of, okay, let me just take, a decent slice and go. But once you start seeing people grabbing and grabbing and grabbing, I feel like for some people, it just turns on something that like, me too, let me join them and grab because I may not get cake, right? Now, granted, I don't know everybody's situation, but from the looks of it, these people are dressed nice, they look good. So I'm gonna say these are not homeless people, okay? And one thing I was even talking to a friend about was the fact that even when people come abroad, Nigerians come abroad, and they're doing better in life, they get to a stable position, you still see like remnants of that scarcity mindset. For example, she was telling me how her mom, anytime there's something free, her mom would say, go and take, go and take, go, But it's like, you don't really need this free item. Sometimes they're just taking because it's that mindset of, I don't know when next something like this will come, or let me take and keep, and you never know when we'll use it. You'll notice this a lot too when you go into the homes of a lot of Africans, and I feel like that's why millennials, like our generation, we prefer minimalism, and not just Africans too. I even hear like African Americans, Hispanics, they talk about how their parents tend to hoard things, even like Indians. They tend to hoard things in the house. They pack so much. They don't want to let things go. And it's just that they're just not brought up to maybe have an abundance mindset that, okay, well, I haven't used this shirt in 12 years. Maybe I should give it away. They're like, no, because you don't know when next I'll need it. But you haven't used it. There was even a time where I had to talk to my mom because I remember she brought like these big cans of string beans, green beans, right? Like maybe 4 or 5. I was like, Mommy, where'd you get these cans? She's like, oh, they were giving them out in this place. And, I said, let me just take some. I said, Mommy, we don't need this. We don't need this. Why not, let the people who are actually in need get it? You don't know when you use it. So you don't know. Ask me if you ever use those cans of string beans. Now, granted, they're cans and they can last long and all that stuff. But I just told myself, I don't want that mindset of lack and just holding on to things, right?
Yeah, that sounds like the white folks coming out of the Great Depression back in those times. I wasn't even alive, but that's what we read about in social studies. But that's a parallel right there. of course, FBA, hey, we had our money saved and stacked underneath the mattress and in shoe boxes and things. So
to the point where whenever I go to a Nigerian wedding and they offer me a souvenir, that's something that is very common. You'll see the aunties grabbing souvenirs and giving them out. I told myself, if it's not something I genuinely care for or I don't care to use, I will just politely decline or just give it to someone else. Okay? So I don't need any more fans. It's good. Maybe on the day of, sometimes I'll even bring my own fan, right? So there's no point in me taking this fan. Some things, they're giving me some Tupper. I don't need this. Now, let's say if it's a journal or something like that I use often, I'll probably take it. But one, I don't like clutter, and I like to keep my space simple. And I just don't want to have that mindset of just because something is free, it means that I must take it. It really doesn't, right? There's gonna be more things in the future, more things coming up that I'll be able to partake in. I'm just so against that mindset, and I have to train my brain essentially to not have that scarcity and poverty mindset. And my dear, lastly, you will see that unfortunately, because the government in Nigeria is so corrupt, people are so greedy. Instead of taking on this position and looking out for the people, you're looking out for your children, making sure they're going to the best schools. You're making sure that you are taken care of. You leave the people to fend for themselves, right? Because you are thinking about yourself. I mean, what you're even giving them is crumbs. They're forced to fend for themselves. And so it's like, when does the cycle really end?
all right, so now, is it a case of selfishness breeds more selfishness? Because we see that when these Africans come over here, man, like, it's wild, man. And Nigerians are notorious, man. They got a reputation around the world. It's deep, man. Let me rewind it.
And so it's like, when does the cycle really end? I'm telling you, I was even talking to someone. I was like, you know what? If God put it on my heart to donate $5 million, if I had that, I don't have yet, but I plan to be a philanthropist in the future, right? If I want to donate $5 million to the betterment of, let's say, Nigerian roads and, build, make the roads nice, by the time that money gets to the road, right? Because, you have to go through government and all that. Let's say 5 million. Okay, you got to pay something. Okay, cool. By the time that money touches the road, I'm even lucky if $9,000 will get to be used to that road, because you will see the greed, the bribery, no care for the betterment of society. Everybody is just every man for himself. Even when you're coming back from the airport and they say the bag is overweight, instead of them charging it to that airline so that the airline can get their proper fees, you'll see them tell you to send them money to their own personal bank account. So disregarding, they don't even mind if they burn bridges or whatever. Every man for themselves. That is their hustle. Policemen, because they're not being paid, a good amount. You see them, just scarcity. Let me just get what I can take. Okay, the government.
All right, so I had to pause it right there. Now, it's funny, man, because Pan-Africans, they'd rather lecture us on our delineation and just being focused on ourselves instead of being taken advantage of and finessed and scammed to oblivion. They don't even give us the heads up. Africans don't even give us the heads up as a whole. You'll probably have a small percentage that will give us the real, but for the most part, Africans don't even talk about this stuff. And then when they come over here, then they partake and look at us as, just another tribe to get rich off of. That's crazy, man. Let me rewind it a little bit.
Let me just get what I can take. Okay, the government is not going to feed me. Let me take what I can take. And if that means I have to bribe or do this or, slip stuff under the table. Now, granted, policemen here do their shady stuff too, right? But it's so prevalent that we've just become used to it. And so, my dear, this thing entire me. I'm not lying to you. When I saw the video, I was so embarrassed. I am telling you, because it exposed so much more. And my thing is, it wasn't even like it was like they were passing out frozen goat's meat, passing out frozen chicken that, you can, bags of rice, cake. So, and I'm like, some of you probably don't even, first of all, some of y'all don't even need to be eating that cake. And then second of all, how long is cake gonna even last that you're fighting and behaving this way because of cake? My dear, let me know what you think about everything I've said in this video. What do you agree with? What do you do?
Okay, that's enough of that. It's a lot to unpack. I'm definitely going to go over the steps and things that we need to look out for as FBA to protect ourselves. We can't just look at these folks as allies when they come over here, because they have a lot of baggage that they have. And I mean, if we just look at them and be like, "Hey, my brother, come over here," and first of all, they don't even look at us like that. So we just another group of people to exploit. Hey, they just want to get in our pockets and destiny swap. To be honest with you, and it's crazy, man, because one thing that they hate is, as FBA, we have to remind them. We constantly have to remind them, and we actually have to set parameters and boundaries and have some structure and order. This is a code that we have to have. We can't just be what they say, quote unquote, willy nilly in our dealings with Nigerians, West Africans, and Africans in general, because we'll get messed up, man, if we're laissez faire. So we definitely have to have stipulations and parameters in our dealings with them. So I'll go over them at the end of the video. But this was very informative. Hopefully people look at this and put things in context rather than letting their ego take over, letting their hurt feelings take over. So I basically said what I needed to say during the reaction portion. Now, these are my final thoughts here, and I hope my people, my FBA people, understand this. But when it comes to that African anyhowness, the way they phrase it, and anyhowness is basically without regard for rules, structure, order, and it's basically leading to dysfunction. And in a nutshell, it just means that the method in which you reach or attain a goal is not important. It doesn't matter who you hurt or do dirty on the journey. It's just as long as you attain your goal by any means necessary. Just whatever you desire. Methods are not important. And we know, like for us, FBA over here, we understand nuance. We understand, I want to say, the domino effect. Every action has a positive or negative reaction. We understand that. That's the gray area of life. But when we come up against somebody or rub shoulders with someone who came up in a culture of dysfunction or anyhowness, then we know that there's transferable qualities when it comes to their behavior. It permeates or bleeds into many other sectors of our everyday life and their everyday life. And pertaining to the concept of anyhowness, you basically have systemic neglect. Okay, you have a trash work ethic because, hey, methods don't matter, ethics don't even matter, behavior is just whatever, and you disregard the rules. Now, I've seen this type of behavior amongst Africans in real life, and hey, as FBA, it's like we kind of do double work. I don't want to give my occupation away. Those who know, they know, but it's like you don't want to do double work because somebody else, they don't understand the game plan of how we do things over here. The consensus rules. So you put a burden because you want to take it lightly for yourself. You put a burden on everybody else that comes behind you. And I'm speaking of somebody who do physical work. This mentality also permeates in the white collar sector too, not just blue collar work. And how do I frame it? People who has or have this type of anyhowness or dysfunctional African mentality, they tend to take the path of least resistance. And if there's no path of least resistance, they are so unethical that they will create that and just throw the burden off, the burden that they should have been holding it or carrying themselves. They will push it off to someone else. And like I say, don't get it twisted or misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying that people from the United States or FBAs don't do that, but in our culture, it's not it's not acceptable. There will be ramifications for that. You know, we don't have like over there in Africa, West Africa, all over that continent. But the ground zero is in Nigeria, let's be honest, and then West Africa, then other parts of Africa. This stuff is a practice. It's a norm. Like you get looked at strange if you don't have this mentality, and it's crazy. And like I say, not all Africans practice that. There's some who like order and structure, and they do things the correct way. But 1.8 billion, hey, they adhere to that mentality right there. And let's be honest, man. If you're African, we're not saying all, but you got to be honest about that homeland, that continent over there. So like I say, and I'm not absolving any FBAs who do that, but the majority will regulate that behavior right there. You know, you'll become targeted with that corporate stuff, and you know you'll get etched out. You won't last long if you do that or behave in that manner, because the people will let you know. Okay, so that's it for here. I have a similar video. It's actually dealing with Ghana and how critical thought is a foreign concept to those people over there. And it applies to West Africa and Africa in general. And like I say, not saying that things or that type of behavior or mentalities aren't over here, but we tend to regulate that type of mentality over here so that it is not a cultural or societal normality. So that's the end of this video presentation here. See you guys later.